Welcome to your first class on Introduction to Land Navigation. Now in this section we're going to try to take some of the concepts we covered in map reading and apply them to actually plotting a route and navigating that route. Now the first class is on pace count. Now pace count is simply a way of measuring the distance you've traveled on the ground. It's the simplest and easiest and probably one of the most accurate ways to measure the distance you've traveled. So a pace count is simply the number of strides it takes an individual to traverse a known distance. Typically, we break up the distances into 100 meters so that you know the number of steps it takes you to move exactly 100 meters. When you look at the map, if you've kept track of your pace count, you know exactly how far you've moved. The concept is very simple. Every time you take a step with your left foot as it hits the ground, you just remember the number of steps you've taken. So an easy way to do this and get your approximate 100-meter pace count is to go to a quarter-mile track, walk around it once, that's approximately 400 meters, and then just divide that number of steps on the left foot by 4. Typically, pace count for an average person is between 50 and 70 paces per 100 meters. We also recommend that you would get a running pace count as well as a walking pace count because it will be slightly different. You'll have slightly fewer steps for running pace count. Now you have to understand when you're using the pace count in the woods or on different terrain, the terrain actually has an impact on your pace count. So if you're moving uphill or through thick vegetation, moving around obstacles, or in periods of limited visibility such as fog or nighttime, or you're really tired, you might take more steps per 100 meters than you normally would. However, in contrast to that, if you're moving downhill, if you're running, as we said before, if you're moving on a trail or road, relatively easy movement, you end up taking less steps per 100 meters. So, there's different techniques to kind of keep track of this in your head. One simple technique is just to get your average pace count and just stick to it, assuming that you're going to have periods you're going to travel uphill, periods you're traveling downhill, and periods that you're, hitting some thick vegetation and such. Other times you can kind of adjust and maybe you just went through some brambles, so you took a lot of extra steps, so that extra 100 meters, your pace count is normally 60, and you're going to give it 70 for that time. And it's kind of more of an art than a science. Some practical considerations when you're keeping your pace count is to remain disciplined and focused. It's a really great test of discipline to keep a pace count for a long period of time. Also, we suggest you use redundancy, have both you and your teammate keep a pace count in case one of you forgets or feels like you're off, or maybe you repeated a number over and over again. You can turn to especially when you're tired, you can turn to your buddy, and hopefully one of you, between the two of you, has kept a good pace count. Other tools to help, you see on the right, you have some what people call ranger beads, but basically the idea is you take these beads and every 100 meters you just slide one across. That way you have a quick visual reference. Other people might mark down with a pencil on a piece of paper, or mark it with their hands, maybe a finger per 100 meters. But the idea is just keep it simple. Use your common sense to pick a way of doing this that makes it easy for you, and understand that you can also put in some backstops on your routes just to make sure that your pace is keeping accurate, like an intersection on a road.